The Cartoon Network fanbase is split into two distinct communities, and it's been this way for quite a while. First, there are the fans of Cartoon Network, whether young or old, who find the company's creative content special and enjoyable in the lineage of the brand. Each original series that's made purely from a creative perspective, not a merchandisable one, is thought of as a great addition to the lineage of Cartoon Network originals. This means there's an appreciation of shows like Regular Show and OKKO just as much as Foster's and Ed, Edd n Eddy. But there is a disappointment when shows like Powerpuff Girls and Ben 10 aren't made for creative potential but for merchandising. Then there is a community, and quite a large community, that believe Cartoon Network died in 2008, and that the post-2008 network will always be a shell of its former self. In this video, I want to explain why this perspective is just as understandable, if not more, than the first point of view, but to get into details, I have to lay the groundwork of the brand itself. When Cartoon Network launched in 1992, it was centralized on reruns of classic cartoons. Pausing for a moment, I just want to get this out of the way. The first president of Cartoon Network, the same person who originally okayed the development of Toonami, Boomerang, Cartoon Cartoons, and Cartoon Fridays, was a woman. I've seen so many comments on my older videos about how women can't do a man's job in Cartoon Network, when in reality, you guys just haven't done your research. Sure, Christina Miller has made some questionable choices, but Cartoon Network original president Betty Cohen laid the groundwork that would make the channel successful for nearly 2 decades, and I believe you guys should really respect what she built. Anyway, the 90s saw the creation of a number of original cartoons branded Cartoon Cartoons, which played alongside the acquired series like Scooby-Doo, Flintstones, Jetsons, and so on. Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, Cow and Chicken, Ed, Edd n Eddy, and Courage the Cowardly Dog were some of the standout hits from the decade, but there was never an overabundance of one series over another. Cartoon Network had a daily collage of content that made sure at any time of day there'd be something different. Cohen expanded on the network by adding a completely new type of animation to American audiences. Toonami launched in 1997 and exploded. Cartoon Fridays started in 1999 and emphasized the network's original cartoons in primetime. By the late 90s, throwback cartoons featured in the Boomerang block were so popular, a secondary channel solely for Boomerang was introduced in 2000. Cartoon Network was a tour de force, with the most diverse offering of animation in cable. Sure, Disney had classic and modern Disney content, Nick had classic and modern Nicktoons, but Cartoon Network was truly Cartoon Network, featuring classics that had aired decades prior, new originals that were popular and iconic, and epic anime the likes that would have been expensive to find anywhere else. Betty Cohen stepped down after nearly 10 years of building Cartoon Network, and in came Jim Samples. Now, did Samples take everything Cohen did and burn it to the ground? No, instead he went further. Knowing the network got a third of their viewership from adults, Adult Swim was introduced and at the time didn't air until 10 p.m., keeping prioritization on Cartoon Network. Fresh originals joined the Cartoon lineup, including Samurai Jack, Kids Next Door, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Camp Lazlo, Megas XLR, Ben 10, Hi Puffy Amiyumi, and My Gym Partner's a Monkey. Newer acquired series moved older cartoons from the network and gave Boomerang more prioritization on classic animation. Cartoon Fridays was refreshed to Fridays with a new intro featuring nearly all Cartoon Network originals in existence. Additionally, those cartoons from the 90s weren't abandoned and continued to be the identity of Cartoon Network alongside the new originals. So, Courage, Ed, Edd n Eddy, and others would air alongside Kids Next Door and Grim Adventures. Samples attempted a theatrical expansion of Cartoon Network content, launching Powerpuff Girls the movie in 2003. Sure, Samples brought in an increased substance of live-action content, but by all fronts, whether on Adult Swim, Toonami, Cartoons, Boomerang, and acquired cartoons, the brand was consistently moving with forward momentum. Essentially, Samples respected what Cohen had built, and realistically, if you looked at the brand, it seemed like one president, not two. Samples expanded on what made the network great. Easily one of the best examples is the Cartoon City era, a truly epic concept that respected every animated series, a concept that would only work if the network was truly fair and balanced to all its animation, and that it was. Cartoon Network was the textbook definition of putting your money where your mouth is. Cartoon Network was Cartoon Network. After Boston got truly butthurt over a glowing character, Jim Samples got booted from Cartoon Network. I mean, I've looked at this over and over again. Whichever morons thought this was a bomb threat breaks my brain. And what's even more disappointing is that if it were a decade later, like if it were today, in an age with memes and idiots roaming free, this really would have never been noticed. This would have been something that no one would have cared about. But, late 2000s. In came Stu Snyder, and like a principal at a new school, he began slicing and dicing everything that had been set by 15 years of leadership. First came the removal of Cartoon City, a concept that would have eventually been replaced, but I had always believed would have continued with newer cartoons alongside older ones. But, of course, I was grandly wrong. An unprecedented 6 cartoons were canned in 2008, including icons like Camp Lazlo, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and Kids Next Door. Foster's and Ed and Eddy followed soon after. Cartoons like Courage, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, and Johnny Bravo stopped airing completely on the network. This fragmented the community of original animation that the channel had been known for, and it didn't help brand perception when CN Real was given advertising and attention during what looked like a slaughter of original cartoons. The traditional Fridays was dissolved into a retitled Friday Night Premiere Thunder until that was also canned and pushed into a completely new day with Har Har Thursdays. The only problem was there weren't enough cartoons to have a long-form evening block, substantially shortening the premiere block. The then 11-year-old Toonami was given the boot, with no hope of the block ever returning. Everything Cartoon Network had developed over 15 years, all the entertainment, intellect, brilliance, all over the original content and creativity was literally slammed shut. The identity of Cartoon Network was forever changed. It didn't matter if Chowder, Flapjack, Adventure Time, Regular Show, Gumball, Steven Universe, or any other original series became the new fresh faces of the network. Snyder literally killed the identity of Cartoon Network, and it hasn't been the same since. It makes clear and unavoidable truth that the brand has shifted to a completely new style, and even through Snyder's repair with new originals, the network could have always had a great lineup of animation, but the thematic nature, the identity would always be stuck back in 2008. I hope this painted a clear picture to understand why people hate Cartoon Network post-2008. After researching this video, it actually changed my perception of Snyder. What do you guys think of this? Let me know in the comments, and as always, if you want more like this, stay tuned for more.